How's it going, guys? Just thought I would do a short video here for you on this concept of health. Like, what is health really? Okay. Because health is everywhere, and some people neglect it, some people make it their whole lives. And the question is, like, what is it? What is health? Okay. And so the first thing I'd say is we have to ask the question, what is health for a body that is ultimately going to pass away, right? Everybody knows it. Not everybody likes to face it or think about it, but none of us are going to be here forever. Okay. So if you ask me, the point of health then is to have enough energy and well being to accomplish what you want, including fun. Okay. So if you're in a bad state of health, you got low energy, you don't have well being, like fun's out of the question, and even day to day work, day to day tasks become impossible. Forget doing what you really want to do. Okay. A lot of times people, they've got jobs, they've got bills, responsibilities, they've got their kids and all of this stuff. And so trying to build a dream on top of the necessities and the responsibilities, that's gonna it means you're coming home and it might be at the end of the day after you've really done everything, all the responsibilities, put the kids to bed, whatever, and then you might have to squeeze out that extra hour. And you can see why you're going to need to have robust health and energy to be able to do something like that. And even if it's not, even if you have the luxury and the freedom to pursue what you want more than having to like squeeze it into little slots here and there. Like I have a friend who launched a business and he took it to some great heights, but the amount that he poured into that was crazy. Okay. And so every day he needed to be at the top of his game. And there are times where, for one reason or another, maybe he didn't have great energy that day, and it reflected right away in his performance, and building the business became more difficult. Okay. So the reason I say what is health for a body that's going to pass away is because I think some people take, like, longevity is good. Don't get me wrong, we want to get the full extent of our lifespan and to be able to really live fully during that lifespan as much as we can, right? But the way some people approach longevity is almost like they're trying to become immortal. And yeah, that's they get hit by the inevitable one way or the other. And so going longevity crazy, both that and total negligence of your health are ultimately misplays. Okay. So that's not to say that if you're truly passionate about cultivating health and wellness and vitality, that you shouldn't do those things. Those things are fantastic. But just understand that the purpose of being healthy is to accomplish what you want, to live your life fully, right? And so, having said that, okay, now the question is, like, what exactly is health? All right. And what I would say is that health is truly about systems thinking and emergent properties. And I think that this is what is really meant by the concept of holistic health. Because I think sometimes people mistake the phrasing holistic health for being like alternative medicine, and we're going to get into that. I'm totally pro alternative medicine, pro conventional medicine. It all has its place, but to think holistically is to think of the whole and the parts that it's made up of. And that's why I'm saying that systems thinking is important, because your body, and then extending up past the body to your whole being, is a system of many interrelated parts that create the emergent property of health. Okay, so health is not any one single thing. Health is not oh it's not the one glass of water, it's not the workout, it's not just the meals or just the better sleep. It's so many things that work together that, when I say produce an emergent property, it's like, okay, so if you're not familiar with the idea of emergent properties, it's where the the sum, or sorry, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So a bunch of molecules that make up a cell, well, everybody knows that a cell is a lot more, it's a thing of a higher order than just a collection of molecules, right? You can't put just any random set of molecules together and get a cell, but in the right combination, the right system, you get something emerging that is the functions of a cell. You put a bunch of cells together, you get a tissue and an organ, and now you have something that is operating again on a higher level. You put all the organs and the systems of the body together, and you get a person. And a person is then something on a far greater, far higher order than merely the parts that make them up. And I'm not saying that that idea is representative of the way that I personally see things. I'm not saying that a human being and our intelligence and our consciousness and all of that is merely something that emerges from all of our parts together, but this it's suitable for this idea. And then, okay, so then you get a person, and then if you put a group of people together, you get a family unit. And a family unit is again something that is operating on a higher order than the parts, the people that make it up, and onwards to a town, a city, a nation, etc. Okay, so once again, health is not one thing. Okay, and this is why, uh if you're trying, this is why, like, taking one supplement or one medication or medicine or something like that is never going to produce health. It's really why lifestyle change, which is really like tweaking the knobs and adjusting the whole system of your life, is what's required if you want to produce the emergent of health or not. Okay, um, you have to think of yourself as a system if you want to be healthy, if you want to have enough energy and well-being, going back, to accomplish the things that you want to do. And so, as a follow-on from that, I want to say a little bit about the difference between health versus just disease management. And unfortunately, I think that a lot of the way we approach our health and well-being in the world today with conventional medicine, and, you know, to be fair, disclaimer, not a doctor, not a psychiatrist. Okay, with that said and that out of the way, I think that the way we approach health is a lot more about disease management. So people are always riding a line in terms of their vitality, and all it takes is a little dent, and then a little hit to the system, and then some type of disease manifests. And then, instead of looking at the totality of their lives, instead of looking at the system of their life and and thinking holistically about how they can begin to implement change across the board, we go look for a quick fix solution, a band aid that covers up the symptom, and then problems arise elsewhere. So truly becoming healthy is a whole different game than disease management. And for a time I studied traditional Chinese medicine, and they have some really good insights, because I would say that that system, Chinese medicine, is a lot more about actually becoming healthy and remaining healthy than simply uh, taking a diseased or damaged state back up to neutral. They'll do their best to bring people back from disease. Some things you're obviously, if you get into a car accident or something and you need emergency services, that's where you're going to want a Western surgeon, Western medicine. Okay. Western medicine is amazing in the acute phases. But so in Chinese medicine, they as a principle, they look for the root of a of an illness or a problem, and not just the stem. Okay, so symptoms of disorder and disease are like the stems, and too often we try to just look for something that eliminates the symptom at the stem level, whereas like the issue, or the insight rather, with treating the root is that sometimes one thing manifesting in one place of the body is related back to something in a totally different area. So you need to think in a holistic system sense to treat the root, so then the stem heals as well. Okay. And they also have this concept of harmony of the different energies of the organs. Um, each organ is given a different element and then diagnosed relative to its function, is diagnosed relative to other organs, also that this idea of harmony and balance can be restored and maintained, health being seen as a state of harmony and balance. Okay, like if you think about any system, okay, even in your car, right, the wheels have to be balanced, otherwise you get unnatural tensions or wear and tear on one place relative to the other, and then something breaks down before it should, throwing the whole system into disarray. So balance and harmony is very important as a concept to health. Okay. And so the next thing I want to say about thinking about health from a systems thinking perspective is that mind body dualism is a misnomer. Your body is your emotions, sort of, yeah, again, then your emotions are the body, are the mind, right? It's all one thing. And so when you're looking to create a state of health, it isn't enough just to look at the body level. You have to look at your stress levels, your mental health. You can think yourself sick. All right, like there is enough research out there that shows that our biology literally responds to our thoughts, and definitely to our emotions. There's a book called When the Body Says No by Gabor Mate, and it's a whole book explaining about how a lifetime of chronically unresolved emotions eventually outpictures itself as disease on the body. So there is no true health if you're not thinking about like the whole system, which includes your emotions and your mind. And then even individual and world dualism is a misnomer. Okay, so this is where we would start to get into, well, it doesn't even have to go to the level of metaphysics, because metaphysically everything in reality is one whole thing. But again, even at the body level, at the emotional level, at the mental level, you are permeable. Thoughts can penetrate your mind. You can pick up emotional and energetic residue from other people, and pollutants, pathogens, etc. at the physical level can get into your body. And so even your even your environment and the types of people you're around and the places you go to and the ideas and the thoughts that you expose yourself to, all of these things are contributing to the system, tweaking little knobs and changing the emergent property that is you, that is your state. And then you can either assess that state as being one of well-being and health, energy, vitality, or a lack of that. Okay. So it's important with health to realize that there is no dogma. And this is like, I was kind of um touching on this when I said that, like, I'm all good with alternative medicines, I'm all good with conventional medicine. I am all good with energy healing and all of these types of things, therapy, all of this. It all has its place. There can't be any no-go zones, all right? Because that is getting a little bit too, almost like sometimes people will treat the way they approach health and well-being like it's a religion, like it's an ideology, not knowing that what they that their solution could be right around the corner inside of a system or a way of thinking that they had never considered before. So this whole idea of no dogma and taking what works for you from any system, for me, I started thinking this way a long time ago when I got into reading Bruce Lee's philosophy, and he was big. He created Jeet Kune Do, which was a martial arts system, and this was like before MMA became big. He was talking about going from system to system and borrowing the techniques that worked for you and discarding the rest at a time where, like, the karate guys they were only about karate, the boxing guys were only about boxing, the grapplers were only about grappling. And he said, why not use it all? It all has its place in a coherent system. And so, like, his thing was about, like, using no way as the way. And that's how I think it is super beneficial to think about health, because really then you can build your own system of practice. Um, Not everything works for everyone. Again, just as an example, when I was studying Chinese medicine, I learned that one place it really shines is with chronic conditions, and particularly if people struggle with, like, Crohn's or IBS, um, and I forget what the third that's similar to that, but that it works really well for that and other chronic conditions. And so I wonder sometimes, people who might struggle with that, do they think to look into those systems, or do they maybe have a prejudice towards it? So throw away prejudices, throw away dogma, throw away ideologies. Who cares if you think that something is at first not for you, or you might think it's silly? You never know what might have an answer you're looking for that can then help you tip your whole system in favor of a great state of health and well-being. Okay, so the gist is that you want to go meta before you bring it down to ground level. Have an understanding of what health is as a whole. Okay, have a bird's eye view picture, like we're kind of talking about, before you start looking for individual bits and pieces, because there is so much out there. Like, we're in the information age. There is unlimited perspectives and bits of information. So that said, like, we'll go to the boots on the ground level. Okay, So it's all one thing, metaphysically speaking. Okay. And then even lower, at a lower octave than metaphysical considerations, your mind, your emotions, your body are all semi permeable membranes, you could say. All right. Um, but despite it being one whole thing, we want to chunk it down. All right. So the very first thing I would say is learn about how the body actually moves and have some kind of body based practice. All right. There is not going to be any state of true health without moving the body and achieving some type of fitness there. Now, when I say learn how the body actually moves, um, there's a lot to that. I mean, like the whole field of kinesiology, and exercise science, and all that. But basically, a good place to start looking, and a lot more people are talking about it these days, is to think of the body as fascial system rather than that moves as one whole unit, rather than, because that is how you move. If you think about it, any athlete executing any motion is using their whole body, really. Okay. Versus, because even when I first got into health and fitness and stuff when I was a bit younger, I came into it from the sort of bodybuilding angle, and isolating muscles, isolating joints. If you're going to do any isolation exercises like that, it is, if you ask me, better to layer it on, like, as like the third or fourth order layer. Okay, learn to move as a whole unit. Okay, and so that you hear that, that's where like big compound, if you're lifting compound lifts and whatnot. Okay, so you need to move your body, and like my hot take is that it could just be some kind of daily semi vigorous walking. Even the most like unfit people can still go take a few thousand steps a day. That is really what the human body evolved and is designed for, is to stand on two legs bipedally and to walk, run, sprint, and throw. All right, so even just walking every day, if you are truly too busy for, like, I don't know, an hour in the gym a few times a week, go for a walk, make it a little bit vigorous, some kind of body based practice. Okay, and I'll throw in that uh, breath work is super important too, because most people breathe way in far too shallow a fashion, and that leads to all kinds of problems. Okay, you want to be breathing into the belly, right? Not up here in the shoulders. You ask a lot of people to take a deep breath, and they're up here. They bring the shoulders up like this. You look at a baby, it's all belly, belly up and down. Okay, and not only is that going to oxygenate the blood and keep the health of like your organs and your brain and whatnot in tip top shape. If you're into any type of like esoteric practices or anything like that, I do qigong uh, in addition to my other um, forms of fitness. But proper breathing is the way that you maximize life force, chi, prana, these types of things. Goes by different names in different systems and part of the world. But aside from the maximizing life force side of proper breathing, a huge insight is that when you breathe in a shallow fashion, your body basically feels like it is always on the verge of suffocating. And so you trigger yourself into, and not even just trigger, you get yourself stuck in a fight or flight state, and so then you're anxious all the time. So a lot of people who have chronic anxiety problems don't realize that it's because they breathe badly. And by taking deep belly breaths and slowing down the exhales, you literally turn on your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest. Uh, and you can basically delete anxiety through breathing. Okay, so other than a body based practice, do some broad spectrum learning on nutrition. Okay, so remember that there's no dogma, every body is individual. And so this is why you got to be careful about people prescribing one system of eating for all people. Okay, veganism works for some people, carnivore works for some people, keto works for some people, paleo works for some. There's a million different diets out there. Do your research, experiment, go by how you feel. Right? We remember we said health is really about having the energy and the well-being to accomplish your goals and to have fun in life. So um, if something's leaving you feeling in the dumps, question whether or not that way of eating is really for you. Okay, a solid rule of thumb is going to be to reduce the load of processed things with tons of additives. All right, that's just adding more toxic load to the body, stressing your body out. All right, so you want to opt for raw. Now, when I say raw, I don't mean that it necessarily has to be uncooked or that you can't mix things together. Um, just that the closer to it being food, the better. All right. A lot of people are gonna hate me for this, for saying this. It's a little controversial with some people, but if you can, try to go for organic. Okay. Um, reason being is that, so like with produce, for example, organic produce has slightly higher macronutrients, but where it really shines is in phytonutrients and antioxidants. It's got like sometimes like 20 to 40% more of those secondary nutrients, which all have a lot of benefits the for the human body. Okay, and then also just a lower pesticide and contaminant load. And so part of the reason that it like has a higher nutrient content is because of the practices of conventional farming. They don't do things like a lot like giving the soil a whole season um, or even year to replenish some of the micronutrients and the microbiome in the soil, and so then the plants suffer for it. You get a slightly more uh, uh, nutritionally void fruit or vegetable or what have you. And then as far as meat is concerned, you'll get things like better omega 3 to omega 6 profile in meat. But, anyways, like I said, do your own research, do what works for you. It's just a suggestion, okay? And then the last thing I'll say about nutrition is that supplementation comes after cleaning up your diet and eating in a way that works for you. Too many people, they're like, I'm going to get into the gym culture, I'm going to get fit. And then they just, they don't they're crushing McDonald's every day while thinking that like taking some vitamins and or whatever on top of it is going to change things. All I can say to that is what Hippocrates said. Okay, um, let food be thy medicine, and let thy medicine be food. I might be misquote. I might be saying that out of order, but the point is that your state of health really comes from the quality of the food that you're eating. So take care of your food, find a way to eat that works for you. Have some kind of emotional clearing practice, because again, unresolved emotion can produce disease, plain and simple. And so, a good place to look is the Letting Go Process by David R. Hawkins. All you have to do is a little bit of research, and there's so much out there that talks about it now. Learn how to do letting go, which is basically allowing your emotions to be felt and processed rather than suppressed or repressed or you know, put onto something else or someone else. Have some type of mental hygiene practice. So, I'm a huge proponent of meditation. Journaling is amazing to just do a mind dump, okay, to clear your thoughts. And then a huge one for mental hygiene is unplugging. Unplug from the infinite amount of input we get from news and social media. At this point, it's old news that how much it negatively affects us. It destroys people's mental health and emotional well-being, and all of that's going to have an impact on their physical health. It's all one holistic system. So unplug sometimes, meditate, journal, clear your mind. Okay. And then, because even individual world dualism is a misnomer in a certain sense, you need to curate your relationships. Okay. Either cut out or minimize toxic people, energy vampires that just leave you feeling drained and bad about yourself. Okay. And then curate your environment. All right. Uh, orderly environment, orderly mind, and uh, just also the cleanliness and making sure that you're not loaded with pollutants and toxins and these types of things. Uh, what's outside is going to affect your inside. Okay. And then um, the last thing I'll say about health is like just let it be fun. So it's so easy with like the information overload and perfectionism and seeing other people and their level of fitness or how much time freedom they have to do this or that, and then it can become very overwhelming and stressful, and then people just give up. So much better to, like, let's say you see someone with like this perfect physique on social media and you get discouraged and so you do nothing. Well, like I said, if you just do a daily walk, all right, and you do that every single day for a year, that's like, let's say you do 10,000 steps a day, right? That's 365 times 10,000 steps. You are going to be in a much better state of health. And maybe you just throw on a podcast or listen to music or something, make it fun. Okay. You don't have to change your whole diet all at once. Make little interventions here or there. Tip the scales, right? Systems thinking. Change little bits and pieces where you can that will slowly alter the emergent. The emergent starts changing, you got more energy, more well-being. Now you have the resources to make further changes, and you don't get the rubber banding of like snapping back to your old life because you've worked on progressive change. Okay. And then, yeah, so just to close it off with regards to health, I'll just say, because of the other stuff we talk about on this channel, that if you want to get into really becoming a powerful reality creator, okay, doing manifestation the right way, or if you want to start moving towards a greater sense of like life purpose, your own journey, what's important to you, you're going to need to have a state of health. Even uh, you know, deep spiritual work or deep psychological or inner work, all of this stuff takes resources, it takes energy. You need powerful energy to do all of those things. So think about health as uh, a whole system. Work on the system from a meta bird's eye view perspective, and move yourself towards the levels of energy and well-being that work for you, so that you can make the most of this life you have, and check the things off that you want to have checked off.